Sean Marks has begun the task that will likely take up a majority of the remaining offseason. That is cutting down the Nets roster as they have already exceeded the training camp maximum on their roster and eventually getting it down to 15 standard contracts and just three two-way players. The first of which cuts was Tosan Evbuomwan. What's going on, Nets fans? Welcome back to the Brooklyn Boys Show. Josh Williver right here with you on Saturday, August 30th. We continue to creep closer to Nets training camp beginning, the preseason eventually, and then in a little over a month and a half, we will have Brooklyn Nets basketball, baby. Appreciate you all tuning in. Smash like, hit subscribe if you haven't done so already. Helps us grow a ton right here on the show. Josh Williver, Saturday afternoon. So hyped to be back with you guys on the show. If you were wondering where the content had been over the last couple days, I was wrapping up my vacation up in the great state of Maine. Connor overseas in Italy, but we're both back in New York now and getting ready to upscale the content as the summer begins to slow down and come to an end. And Sean Marks has to get his roster ready for training camp to officially begin. As I mentioned earlier, the Nets already went over the limit in terms of the number of guys they can invite into training camp. And to make a little bit of room, the Nets parted ways with a guy that was going to take up a two-way spot on this roster in Tosan Evbuomwan, someone who spent about 30 games up in Brooklyn last year, also on a two-way contract, his first season with the Nets after bouncing around the league these past 2 years, excuse me. And he was overall just a disappointment in summer league, someone who at one point shot 2 of 15 from the field, a guy that was taking wet reps away from some of the younger guys on this team. And I think ultimately that's why Brooklyn decided to move on. Tosan Evbuomwan, a guy that, might be able to bring some veteran leadership for the 20 or 30 games he's up with Brooklyn throughout the season. But what he's really going to be doing is taking away spots on the floor for guys that need the development much more than he does. We know what Tosan Evbuomwan is at this point in his NBA career, and that is nothing more than a back end of the rotation piece. And I don't think the Nets and their front office expected to eventually be getting anything better out of him. And so they decided to part ways with him, which I'm fine with. Personally, he was probably my least favorite Net last season. Whenever Tosan Evbuomwan was on the floor in Brooklyn, I was like, oh boy, here we go again. A guy that just chalked up threes with no acknowledgement of him being a bad shooter, someone who did not use his size to his advantage and was just a waste of space on the floor for the Brooklyn Nets. In his time in Brooklyn, in a shocking statistic, in his time in Brooklyn, he was playing 24 minutes a night on the floor in Brooklyn. 24 minutes a night. This guy's awful. This guy is awful. And he was spending 24 minutes a night on Brooklyn's roster last year. Truly someone who had no business being on any NBA roster. No business being played 24 minutes a night at the NBA level. And I'm glad this Nets team parts ways with him because, look, it opens up a second two-way contract. And I think even more importantly than that two-way being opened up, it gets him off the roster and it gives the guys behind him more opportunities to show their shine at the NBA level. If you're wondering why I've had to grab a tissue a couple times this show already, only a couple minutes in, folks, we are in the heat of my allergy season, which is the summer turning to the fall, the winter giving way to early spring. It's when the pollen is rushing through the air, and my body has not been treating me right recently. So I will do my best to work through it, but at times when the time calls, I may have to check in with my allergy and my inner body. So that's a little personal update from me. Hope you guys are doing well in the chat, enjoying the end of the summer on this beautiful Labor Day weekend. It is perfect weather outside today and through the rest of the weekend. Hope you folks are enjoying some college football, the beginning of that kicking off. I certainly have. I know there's an upset brewing currently down in Tallahassee with the Florida State Seminoles, Alabama Crimson Tide. So drop some college football record predictions in the chat as we welcome week one of that. And then we are also a week away from my New York Jets kicking off their season, baby, hosting Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers at MetLife Stadium. So a ton of football. And you know, it's the NBA offseason, but us Nets fans will always stay busy criticizing Sean Marks, as Anthony Paris says. Marks is not a good GM. Appreciate you tuning in, Anthony. Appreciate you, Jonathan, in the chat. Everybody else tuning in right here on this beautiful August 30th. Like, subscribe if you haven't done so yet on our road to 500 subscribers. Free, easy, takes 3 seconds out of your day. Helps us grow a ton right here on the show. I know, we had a ton of support over the beginning of the summer, over that summer league time. We plateaued a little bit right here in the heart of the offseason. But if you could take just a couple seconds, like, subscribe, helps the show grow a ton right here live on the Brooklyn Boys channel. Appreciate you all tuning in, the best fans in the world, us loyal Brooklyn Nets fans. And I was listening to 880 ESPN yesterday. I'm not sure if any of you were. And they were talking about how the Brooklyn Nets, they were talking about the New York City area as a whole. Who was the most desperate fan base that needed a championship? Who on the suffering scale, they called it, needed a championship the most? And of course, my New York Jets headlined the list at number one, a team that has not been to the Super Bowl since they won it back in Super Bowl III, 1969, the February of that year. And they have the longest drought in sports history, in North American sports, currently, at 15 years. Haven't made the playoffs in my lifetime. And then the question is, are the Brooklyn Nets number two? And you can make a good argument for it. Another team that, while they've been to the finals twice, they got swept once and only won one game the other time. And, I mean, it's failed experiment after failed experiment right here in Brooklyn. Like, you bring in Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett. That doesn't work. And then you give Boston your lottery pick and you're awful for the next 10 years. And then you try it again with Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and then you even add in James Harden. You're looking at three, probably going to finish, KD going to finish a top 20 player of all time in my book. One of the best pure scorers to ever do it. Kyrie Irving, the best dribbler of all time. The handles are so deep. James Harden, I never loved, but look, the guy's a perennial all-star and will go down as one of the all-time great, carried those Houston teams for so long. And then you fail with that. And now at this point, you have 5 first-round picks, and you sit on them the entire time, and you don't get anything. And it's just such a disappointing draft considering the assets you come in with when you have 5 first-round picks. And great, you end up with Yegor Dioman, who you hope to be your future, but you would have loved to see this team trade up, end up with a top 3 pick. And so at this point, for the Brooklyn Nets, it's just been misery after misery after misery, which is why I say when this is the best fan base in the NBA. And I know there's not a ton of Brooklyn Nets fans out there. It's a acquired taste, some would say. This is a pretty small fan base. I'll be the first to tell you that the Knicks run this city, no doubt about it, in terms of fan capacity. But look, this Nets fan base is strong and resilient, and I do believe that we'll eventually, somehow, some way, get out of this. But it is just wild to think that this team had 3 of the all-time greats and couldn't make it out of the Eastern Conference semifinals. That will never not be crazy to me. That will never not be crazy to me and will go down as an all-time fail. And it'll go right smack dab in the middle of Sean Marks' record. As we continue to ponder how much longer his leash is as Nets head coach and how much longer he just gets to stick around for free and not have to worry about job security. And when the Tsai family pulls the plug is something that's beyond. Excuse me. Smash the like, hit subscribe. If you haven't done so yet, the biggest news around Nets world, it was reported yesterday, Tosan Evbuomwan, the first guy out the door, in a move that I absolutely love. Had to get him out. There was absolutely no room for him on this roster, no room for him to get the absurd 24 minutes a night that Jordi Fernandez was giving him last year. He was terrible, provided no upside, and frankly won't do anything for your team heading forward. Good move by Sean Marks. Wanted to get Tosan out the door for a little while now. Load questions, comments, thoughts in the chat if you haven't done so yet. Smash like, hit subscribe. Helps us grow a ton right here on the show. And you want to get your thoughts in on this show? Comment section is your place to go. Excuse me. B-Mark 360 in the building. What's going on? BK Mark. I said B-Mark. BK Mark 360 with a nice little Brooklyn Bridge icon there. Love it, BK Mark. Appreciate you and everyone else tuning in right here on the show as we continue to grow this community. Like, subscribe. Helps us grow a ton. Who will be next on the chopping block for the Brooklyn Nets? Because while we sit here on August 30th and say, the Nets don't have to worry. Roster cut down day is so far in advance. You'll bring these guys into training camp and see what happens. You still have to make a spot for Cam Thomas and on the training camp roster, assuming he comes back at least for a little bit before the season. And then you also have to begin to think, there's no point in bringing guys into the building for training camp that aren't going to make the roster. That's just a waste of everybody's time, including the coaching staff. So there are definitely guys that I'm looking at, like Tyrese Martin and especially Jalen Wilson, I think headlines this list for me as a former Summer League MVP. Outside of that little stretch against nobody competition, Jalen Wilson has done nothing for this Nets team. And so I could see his path pretty clearly leading for him to be out this door. He plays a 2-3 combo that there are so many guys behind him that could easily step up and fill that role. Like what he does for this Nets team, nothing that others can't do. So to me, he adds no value to this Nets team whatsoever, and a role that could be pretty easily filled from the guys in front of him, the guys behind him. Jalen Wilson, in my eyes, is one of the first names that comes to mind when we're talking about outside of Tosan Evbuomwan, guys that you might not see even go into training camp and certainly not come out of it with a roster spot. But now, I think what I haven't gotten to yet regarding the Tosan Evbuomwan situation is this clears up a second two-way roster spot for the Nets to hand out. So a couple weeks ago, I was talking about Fenbo Zhang likely to me filling that last roster spot on the two-way side of things. But now it opens up another one. So we get to see how Grant Nelson plays throughout training camp. He's a guy that I'm certainly headlining, a developmental forward who is going to need, is not going to be a guy that you just shove right into the NBA and see results from. We saw that with his poor Summer League performance, but at least you have the capacity at this point to give a guy like Grant Nelson a chance rather than just ride it out with Tosan Evbuomwan, someone who you know exactly what you're getting, and you're not getting much. Well, let me just put it that way. So, not only does Evbuomwan get out of here, I don't ever want to see him again. I don't want him to have anything to do with the Brooklyn Nets. But it also opens up another two-way availability for a guy like Grant Nelson to come into the building and prove himself. And yeah, he'll get developmental time on Long Island, but you got to understand, with some of these people coming into the NBA in their first couple years, not only is it about the developmental time on Long Island with the G League Nets, but it is also very much about getting pro reps. Even though you're only you're capped at 50 games a year at the NBA level, that's still a ton. Like, you don't often see these two-way players getting all 50 games that they're allotted at the NBA level. And so Nelson's certainly somebody that I could see gunning for this spot as someone who is going to need time to if he ever wants to sprout into an NBA player, certainly going to need time on his own down on Long Island to develop, but also you get him a couple NBA looks at least, and maybe it's only in garbage time, but that certainly adds something, and that is certainly an element that cannot be overlooked in terms of what getting on a two-way contract brings to the table. I saw this comment by Jonathan, and I know this was something that was extremely, in my eyes, way over talked about in on Nets Twitter last couple days and throughout the Nets fan base. A lot of Nets fans seem to be extremely high on Oliver Maxine Prosper from the Dallas Mavericks. And as Jonathan writes in, yesterday Mavs opted to waive him as opposed to salary dumping him to the Brooklyn Nets for a future second-round pick. Were you surprised Sean Marks didn't seize this opportunity? Look, Jonathan, I'm not. I don't think Sean Marks is still in the interest of gaining pretty useless second-round picks at this point. I understood it with Haywood Highsmith, someone who, when healthy, gives you pluses on the defensive end of the floor, and it might take a little bit for him to come back, but at least you know what he can bring you as an established player in the NBA. Maxine Prosper, on the other hand, someone who struggled a ton in Dallas, and look, I don't think a change of scenery helps anyone at this point because the Nets have, already have power forward depth, and I personally think, despite what a lot of Nets fans look at this roster and say, I think Drew Timmy's a roster lock at this point in what we're looking at. So obviously you have MPJ there, but Drew Timmy, Noah Clowney, certainly I'm calling a power forward instead of a center this year. I know that's not how Jordy Fernandez has used him 100% of the time in the past, but Clowney will be a power forward, make no mistake about it. So that's three guys right there that are already going to fill up the power forward minutes. And Maxine Prosper getting brought into the building makes no sense to me. Maybe from a salary-wise, you eat his his small contract, gets you a little closer to the salary floor, and then don't invite him into camp. But I don't think at this point, just stockpiling the useless second-round picks is exactly what Sean Marks is in the market for. I think he wants to, I don't know what he wants to do with the Cam Thomas situation. We have a ton of Nets analysts lined up to come onto the show, which I'm extremely excited about. So stay tuned for that. Like, subscribe, notification bell if you haven't, to not miss an upload, not miss a live stream, not miss any content that we put out there. So make sure to do that real quick. We got a ton of Nets analysts lined up, and we're going to hear a lot of different perspective on what's happening with the Nets and Cam Thomas, if there's any movement at all, and if there isn't, what direction, because there's still a ton of ways this could go as we sit here at the end of August and training camp is in less than a month, 3 weeks now. Ton of ways that this Cam Thomas situation could go, but Sean Marks is still tied up with all this stuff, and the useless second round picks, at least in my eyes, are not what's going to help this Nets team move forward. They've compiled the draft picks. Now it's time to hit on some draft picks and play team basketball. Smash like, hit subscribe if you haven't done so yet. Josh Woliver here on a gorgeous Saturday, August 30th afternoon. We'll take a quick break here. Word from today's presenting sponsor, Shoreline Sports Cards. Come right back. Stay tuned with us right here on the Brooklyn Boys Show.
You are listening to the Brooklyn Boys Show with your host, Connor Long. If you're enjoying the show, drop us a sub and leave a like. It helps more Nets fans find us. Quick break, then back to talking Brooklyn Nets basketball.
Today's episode of the Brooklyn Boys Show is brought to you by our presenting sponsor, Shoreline Sports Cards, located at 137 Main Street in Port Washington, New York. Whether you're chasing the newest hobby boxes, grabbing singles, or just want to talk cards with fellow collectors, Shoreline is the spot. They've got a massive selection across basketball, football, baseball, and more, with new inventory hitting the shelves every single week. If you're local, make sure to stop by the shop at 137 Main Street in Port Washington and check it out for yourself. yourself. If you're not in the area, no worries at all. You can still keep up with Shoreline by following them on Instagram, eBay, and whatnot for product drops, live breaks, deals, and hobby updates. All links are right in the description down below. Huge thanks to Shoreline Sports Cards for supporting the show and the Brooklyn Nets community.
You're listening to the Brooklyn Boys Show live on YouTube. Josh Williver right here with you. Saturday afternoon, Nets, heart of the offseason, but we continue to grow our great community. Say hello to everybody in the chat, everybody who tunes in after the fact, who means just as much to us right here on the show. Let's see, Jonathan comes in and starts us off. Appreciate you tuning in as always, Jonathan. Nobody is really shocked Tosan was the first roster cut. He had an underwhelming summer league and was too ISO-oriented as opposed to a team style of basketball, and he was awful ISO-oriented. So he might have been ISO-oriented, Jonathan, but he's an all-around awful basketball player, a guy that I don't see clinging onto the NBA very much longer. I don't think if he can't find his home on the Brooklyn Nets, who are probably going to be the worst team in the league this year, certainly a top 3 worst team. I mean, I don't know who else is just going to be ready and willing to take him in and, bring him back to the NBA. So Tosan Evbuomwan, I'm saying adios from a Brooklyn Nets perspective and maybe even from a league-wide perspective. Not only that he was bad in the summer league, Jonathan, and yes, he was a ball hog there. He was not a team player there, and he just overall had no point in being on this Nets team, brought nothing. So happy to say goodbye and adios to Tosan. Whether a salary dump or trade or the Cam Thomas situation finally gets resolved, Brooklyn now has 2 open two-way spots, and Grant Nelson and Fenbo Zhang could be buying for them. Absolutely, Jonathan. And I think Zhang gets priority there. Let's see if the Nets try anybody else out for that other two-way spot. But, Grant Nelson, an extremely interesting name, and he's someone I'm definitely keeping my eye on out for Summer League. I know some Nets fans have already, ruled him out with a not great Summer League, but I'm keeping my eye out for him during the preseason, and I wouldn't move on from him quite yet, as this move significantly raises his chances of being on Brooklyn's roster. Let's see. Say hello to a couple other of you guys in the chat. Anthony Paris. Marks is not a good GM. You know it. Let's see. We go back to Jonathan again. Overall, Josh Marks still has cap space, 16 to 20 million unspent. A 20-plus roster crunch, and Cam Thomas is still unsigned. How late is Marks with his summer homework 24 days before Media Day? Media Day isn't the big cutoff for me, Jonathan. It might be a little embarrassing if the Nets and Cam Thomas are still at a standstill then, but it's the first day of training camp, so Media Day is usually what? A day, 2 days before training camp, and that's when they get all their little graphics and pictures out. I don't care for Cam Thomas. He can get the sick day treatment as they do in school, where if you missed picture day or for some reason you were sick or whatever, you weren't in school uniform, you had to retake it, I'm sure they can set one of those up for Cam Thomas. So that's not the biggest one for me, but certainly I understand your point. And Jonathan, you got to understand, it's even if the answer isn't playing Cam Thomas, this Nets team has to still spend to get to the salary floor because they're not even there yet. So if you don't get to the salary floor, if you're the Brooklyn Nets, you're just going to start equally dividing the money amongst your guys that are currently on your team right now. So, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I am not in the market to be giving Jalen Wilson an extra payday. That's not what I want to do with my remaining salary cap. Can Sean Marks improve this roster at all, or it doesn't even have to be improving this roster, but can he spend some money somewhere, get some picks? Because you either hit the salary floor or you start paying out free money to guys who don't deserve it. So it's one or the other, Jonathan. It is one or the other. And the salary and the roster crunch is going to be even bigger than spending the rest of the money. Figuring out how to shrink this roster down from 22-ish right now it is, down to 15. So he has his work cut out for him. Let's just say that. And he did get a late start on the summer homework for sure. We've been waiting around all off season, and here on August, or I guess it was yesterday, so on August 29th, Sean Marks, He waived Maxwell Lewis back in the beginning of the summer, which also wasn't a shocker. But here we go with the first, official cut and waiver wire for Sean Marks before training camp, and it comes on August 29th. So he's delayed. He's got some catching up to do. Let's see. Let's see here. We got to that one. We are a day away from September and 6 days away from the draft. Free agency started 3 months ago, and if Cam Thomas isn't signed this week, should the panic button on the future be hit? I got to take a sip of water and prepare for this one. Look, Jonathan, I don't need to tell you that this Nets team and Cam Thomas haven't made any progress at all. It's the writing's on the wall. If there was any progress at all, we would at least be hearing something, anything. We would have Cam Thomas having something to do with the Brooklyn Nets. But right now we don't. And that's the honest truth about it. So, look, he comes back on the qualifying offer. He plays the season out for $6 million and leaves. It seems like the most likely scenario, but then you look at it, Sean Marks has the money to spend, but Cam Thomas doesn't want a cheap contract just so the Nets can trade him and just so they can get trade value for him. That's not what he's looking for. He wants to get paid as much as he can today. And so that's where the Nets and Cam Thomas views differ a little bit. Because you have a guy like Thomas who is coming off an injured season and can't get teammates involved in the offense and is a him-first scorer. The Nets have every right in the world to say, we're not going to give you what you think you're worth. But at the same time, Cam Thomas understands how much cap space the Nets have. And it's not in Cam Thomas's best interest at all to take a little $15 million salary, get traded away, and then give the team that he right now feels disrespected and despises the best amount of draft capital they can get for him. That's not what Cam Thomas or his agency wants. So, right now what's happening is they're both playing the kindergartner game. And they're both saying, Sean Marks is telling Cam Thomas, I'm not going to let you play with my toys. And Cam Thomas is telling Sean Marks, he's just walking away from Sean Marks. He doesn't care because he'll play with someone else's toys. But the issue becomes if Sean Marks actually wants to get value out of Cam Thomas, if Sean Marks wants to team up with Cam Thomas to build a huge castle, or else Cam Thomas, if Sean doesn't let him do that, Cam Thomas just walks away and builds a castle with someone else, and Sean Marks is left to build his small little castle and gets no castle value back. So that's the kindergartner way. And that's the way both sides are playing this. Neither is budging. Neither is having any fun with each other. And it just seems like they're going to play this stupid stalemate game until somebody caves in, Jonathan. And I've been telling you this since August 1st, that the more this goes on, the more I think it gets unresolved. And we're right when we say that there's no other team to swoop in here for Cam Thomas and steal him. There's no market for him right now. No other teams have the cap to pay him. Teams aren't just going to clear $30 million and be like, oh, here comes Cam Thomas. We're bona fide contenders, baby. We got Cam Thomas on a steal of a deal. That's not what other teams are doing. Nobody else wants him. So I think the more this goes on, the more Cam Thomas begins to realize it's the Nets or nothing. It's the Nets on their $16 million offer for 2 years. Or I come back on the $6 million qualifying offer. God forbid I get hurt again. And now nobody in the NBA wants me. And if he comes back on the qualifying offer, he is putting a hell of a lot of faith into himself. Because if it doesn't work out this season, coming off of only playing a quarter of last season, and he either has a bad season this year, he's injury prone, We already can see that he has no problem with having a bad attitude and not being a team player. You think the market isn't there for him now, Jonathan? If that happens, man, Cam Thomas is really going to have no market. And he's already not going to want to come back to the Nets. Nets aren't going to want him, so he's not even going to have a safety blanket at that point. So Cam Thomas is playing with fire right now. He is playing with his career riding on this decision. But at the same time, he's an NBA player that has every right in the world to try and make as much money as he can, so he's not going to budge for the $15 million. And that's the reality of it. So the more this goes on, the more Sean Marks plays the I'm not budging game, the more, at least to me, Cam Thomas is playing the much riskier game. Sean Marks is not losing much. If Cam Thomas walks away, this Nets team is already one of the worst in the league. They're likely drafting their shooting guard of the future in next year's draft. They'll be quick to move on from Terrence Mann. They have no reason to have allegiance to him. The guys behind him consist of Jalen Wilson and rookies that the Nets hope to develop. The guys behind Cam Thomas right now, the two, consist of guys that the Nets are either thinking about cutting or they're rookies that they want to develop and hope one day can be much better than Cam Thomas. The Nets have no reason to stick by Cam Thomas. And Cam Thomas continues to have his career hang in the balance the more this goes on. And I think they're both going to play the waiting game. And they're both going to stick it out and try and prove their point as much as they possibly can. And Jonathan, I think the situation continues to drag on, continues to not have a resolution in sight. And us as Nets fans, we just have to sit here and deal with the reality of the situation that there's zero urgency from either side. So expect this to continue on and continue to take a while. Jonathan follows it up and says, more specifically, if Cam Thomas is fed up with the front office's cold attitude with his contracts, will he sign the $6 million qualifying offer? If he does, how much of a failure is this on Marks? Cam Thomas doesn't want anything to do with the Nets, but if he must, he'll come back on the $6 million QO and try and play his heart out this season. Hopefully doesn't get injured, as I just mentioned. But again, I love Cam Thomas. I'm a proponent of him staying in Brooklyn. But that's not what his attitude looks like. So, he doesn't need to stay in Brooklyn. There's nothing that says that. And so it's kind of a blunder on Sean Marks. But at this point, it's a situation that's hard to back out of. I think that the way this should have been done is you go back to the beginning of the offseason. The NBA finals just ended. We're a couple weeks removed from that. It's before the NBA draft. Sean Marks and Cam Thomas get it done. Like that, we'll move on. Because you had the cap to do it. All parties remain happy. And then you go into the draft having your two for the next couple of years. But at this point, the hole is dug deep. So Sean Marks is not going to just have an easy job maneuvering out of this and just resolving this. So that's the way I look at it. That's where the Nets and the Cam Thomas situation is at today, August 30th. Like and subscribe helps us grow a ton. So if you could hit that, it would mean the world to us right here at the Brooklyn Boys. Again, seasonal allergies are kicking in, so I got my tissue box handy, but that's why I'm having some pauses here and there. Height of the Josh allergy season right now. Let's see. Cam Thomas hasn't played a good political game, such as saying he had nothing to prove to the front office a year ago. For Cam's future, how important is it that he signs the $28 million and not the qualifying offer? At least if he signs the $28 million, he has a team for this upcoming season, and he knows what he's doing for the next 2 years. He comes back on the qualifying offer. He gets injured. He has a down year. his career's headed the wrong direction extremely quickly. BK Mark 360 in the chat. Appreciate you. Hey, I was a season ticket holder last year, and I could at least say with Cam Thomas, he was entertaining to watch. No doubt about it, B Mark and BK Mark, excuse me. And what I'll say about Cam Thomas, one of the reasons I love him, he's a guy that no matter what time, no matter when, no matter where, he can hit from anywhere at any time with any shot on the court. And there's not a lot of guys in the NBA that can do that. So he's got that aspect of it. He can hit from anywhere at any time. That's what I like to say about Cam Thomas. But there's drawbacks with that. Naturally, a him first guy. And I think part of this is that the Nets loved Cam Thomas, but that's not exactly Jordy Fernandez's attitude. If Jordy Fernandez is the head coach, I'm not sure the big three gets built because Fernandez's base is all about scrappiness, team play, hustle, grit, effort, determination. Not just, dragging stars into the building, giving them the ball and telling them to hoop out. I think he likes to build a championship team with a strong group of core players and a lot of team chemistry. And I think that is the mistake that the Nets had. I don't hate going out and getting a superstar, just hate it when you don't have a championship roster around them and then just expect good players to make a great team without great teammates. That's not how team sports work. Not how team sports work. Basketball is not a one-man show. And that's exactly how Steve Nash coached the team. Just drew up the play to give KD the ball and let him do something. And that's not a viable option for maybe for the 2016 Cavs with LeBron James and nobody else. But for that Nets team, it always had to be about a team sport, and it never was. And that's why it was so mismanaged. That's why I will never forgive Sean Marks for screwing that whole thing up. BK Mark, I'm curious to know. You said I was a season ticket holder last year. BK Mark, did you renew the season ticket membership? Because if you did, bless your heart, this Nets team is going to be tough to watch this season. This is not going to be a fun season to watch as a Brooklyn Nets fan. A lot of developmental, a lot of not close games. I'll tell you firsthand, I will be at opening night for that Friday night against the Cleveland Cavaliers, first home game of the season. Connor and I will be there. Got tickets as a birthday present. But I'm not expecting the Nets to put out a good performance at all. I'm expecting Donovan Mitchell and the Cavs to walk into the Barclays Center and put on a performance of whoop-ass, as they like to say. I don't think this game's going to be close. So, BK Mark, if you are staying a season ticket holder, I salute you for that. That is sign of true loyalty to this Nets team. BK Mark, I mean, this Nets team does not deserve fans as loyal as you and as the rest of us. I mean, they've done so much wrong, man. But that's one of the reasons that the Barclays Center is always, taken over by the road team. So interesting, BK Mark. Let me know if you renewed that season ticket membership. I'd love to know. Let's see. Smash like, hit subscribe. Without Cam Thomas, I don't know what to expect next year. Expect Michael Porter Jr. to slide into that role. Yeah, BK Mark. MPJ is going to be to focus on other things. Well, I mean, if the podcasting antics continue through the season, that's like when Paul George had to quit the podcast because the Sixers were so bad. They fell out of playoff contention after many thought that him and Joel Embiid would create a contending team. I love the Sixers' young core, but man, they're going to be riddled with they're going to be haunted by the fact that they paid Paul George close to a supermax. But yeah, expect MPJ to slide into that role as the primary scorer and expect there to be a lot of rotations on this Nets team. Don't expect one guy to be out there for a while every night. There's not going to be a person on this Nets team playing 35, 40 minutes a night as there has been on previous teams, as Mikal Bridges used to do. There's going to be a ton of rotations. Jordy Fernandez is going to try and mix up the lineups. The Nets haven't come out and said that, but it just feels obvious to me that you kind of have to do it that way. And this isn't going to be a winning season whatsoever, so there's no need to keep your best players out there for 40 minutes a night and risk injury. Let's see. Jonathan, Drew Timmy, Jalen Wilson, Tyrese Martin, Tariq Whitehead are most definitely on the bubble. One or two of them could be waived, and one or two could be flipped for more second-round value. Whitehead, you still don't know. 2 second-round picks. I'm saying goodbye to him just because he hasn't shown you anything, and he's injury-riddled. But, if there's a team out there that loves Whitehead's upside so much that there was a reason he was a 5-star coming out of high school, and he was so highly recruited. He was awesome, but the lower body injuries in the leg have caused him to lose bounce, lose speed, and that's going to be something that's tough to recover from. Just as a crafty guard, as he likes to describe himself as. Martin and Wilson probably headline that list for me as guys that are cut candidates. And Timmy, I said, I will defend him for a while. I think Drew Timmy has his spot in this roster carved down. Anthony's with me here. John would think Martin and Wilson will be cut. Absolutely. Smash like, hit subscribe. Wilson's already 25. Man, that's crazy. That's crazy, yeah. I think all 4 of those guys are gone, says Jonathan. A couple of them on the bubble, but I think they keep around Timmy. I think they keep around Timmy for sure. Smash like, hit subscribe if you haven't done so yet. Jonathan LMAO, the kindergartner game. Good description, Josh. That's what I see it as. I like to tell you guys the truth, and they're both playing like 2-year-olds in this sense. Let's see. Star Traffic. Is this a first-time chatter here? What's going on, Star Traffic? Appreciate you joining us. Giddy Kamenga have not signed. Nets say they will wait until the next roster move before they talk to Cam Thomas's agent. That's stupid. You wait that long, and who knows? Giddy and Kamenga are in the same boat where, they haven't been in awesome talks with their front offices either. So if you want to wait for that to go through and that's what's going to set up the market, the Nets have the money. If they want to pay Cam Thomas, they get it done tonight. Star Traffic. So setting the market like that doesn't make much sense to me. But yeah, the Nets have $16 million in cap, another 12.5 on cap hold for Thomas. So if you spend, if Thomas resigns for $18 million, you're only actually spending $6 million out of your remaining salary cap because the money that's on cap hold for Thomas just flows into that contract and you don't have to worry about it. So that would be dumb in my eyes. That would be dumb in my eyes. Let's see. If Cam takes a $6 million qualifying offer, it's just going to lead to more unnecessary messy drama between Marks and Thomas. And obviously, Cam will be traded, but his value is already in a bad spot. Yep, Jonathan, coming off a down year, coming off an injured year. He's got a lot to prove to the NBA world. It's not just his future for the Nets, it's his future in the league that's riding on this season. He comes back on the QO. He's out before he plays a game, in my eyes. Jonathan, good show, Josh. Shout out to you for fighting through the allergy bug. Jonathan, the kind words mean a ton. You and the rest of this chat mean so much. Smash the like and hit subscribe if you haven't done so yet. The allergies suck, but we're fighting through it. We're talking Nets basketball. We talked about the Tosan Evbuomwan cut, or waive. Glad it happened. Got to begin clearing out some roster space. Expect some more, roster management updates and moves coming in these next few days. We got a ton of great guests lined up within the coming weeks, so stay tuned for that. Connor makes his return to the show coming up later this week, as he is now back from Italy, back on the East Coast, here on the beautiful Eastern Standard Time. We appreciate you all tuning in. If you haven't yet, smash the like and hit subscribe. It helps us grow a ton. Share this with all your friends and family. I'm Josh Wolliver for the Brooklyn Boys here on this Saturday, August 30th, saying have a great night, everybody. Enjoy the beginning of the football season, and we'll end as we always do. Let's go Nets. See you on the next one, folks.